Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the Chapter Goals program. It's specifically for leadership teams, so presidents, vice presidents, secretary treasurers, and their directors that are helping to manage those chapters. To show you how you can use BNI Connect to establish chapter goals and then track those chapter goals throughout the 6-month period of your leadership term, or if you happen to go for a full year term, to track it throughout the year as well. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things to keep in mind. First of which is that this is a live webinar, so if you have any questions at all as we're going through the material today, please do feel free to ask those questions. The best way to do that is to type your question into the questions panel, and I will be able to read those questions and I can answer them as we're going along. We're scheduled for about a half-hour worth of content. It's about how long it takes to go through the goals program. Now, that being said, I am always happy to stay on these webinars, on these calls, until every single question has been answered. So the only silly question is the unasked question. So please do ask as many questions as you'd like. We are going to be recording today's session, so if you're the rest of your leadership team, for example, doesn't happen to be here with you, let's say you're the president and your vice president and secretary couldn't make it today, or you're the director consultant managing a chapter and you'd like to share this with your chapters, you are more than welcome to do so. After it is recorded, it will be uploaded to our YouTube site, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, and you'll also be able to find it on the support site. Support site you can access by clicking the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect. All right, so let's take a look at the chapter goals program here in BNI Connect. Now, in order to get to the goals program, we are going to have to go to that scary place beyond the home screen. Now, the home screen is all of the things that have to do with your membership in your chapter, being able to pass slips and referrals and one-to-ones and all of that information. But all the other functionality, things like managing the chapter and other leadership team functions, are all located under these menus along the top here. So you see we have network operations, reports, tools, and admin. Depending on your level of access, you may or may not have all of those. However, you should at the very least have access to network operations and reports. Network is going to be where all the social media components are. Operations is the day-to-day management of your chapter, or dealing with chapter operations. Reports are going to be read-only. Reports are read-only. So in order to enter the goals and use that functionality, we need to go to the operations menu. Again, this is dealing with the management of the chapter. So we're going to go to operations. And once we get to operations, we'll notice a bunch of things down the left-hand column. We have manage visitors, we have manage memberships, we have meeting management, manage goals. And what we're looking for today is that fourth icon down, which is manage goals. Now, if you happen to be a director consultant or an executive director or a senior director here on the call with us today, keep in mind that when you're using this function, it will be managing the goals for whatever chapter happens to be in this drop-down box here. And I'm currently working with the BNI Burr chapter, but if I manage multiple chapters and I wanted to work with, let's say, the Frozen Assets chapter or the Chili Hillbillies chapter, I could switch over to that chapter as well. If you're on the leadership team of just your own chapter, you're not a director consultant, then you're only going to see this one chapter in the list. All right, so going back, manage goals, and under here we have two different options. We have enter chapter goals, and we have view chapter goals. In order to establish our goals, we do need to enter them first, and then later on what we'll be able to do is view the chapter goals and check out our progress as we're going along. So first things first, let's click on Enter Chapter Goals. The first thing that's going to come up is it's going to ask you to choose a start month and year, a long-term vision, and a mission statement. Now the start month and year is going to be what 6-month period would you like to establish goals for. The goals are always entered in 6-month period, mostly just because that's about how much we can comfortably fit on the screen without having people scroll all over the place. It's going to by default, give you the next 6-month period. Since we've already started this April 6-month period in BNI, it's pushing us out. It's just kind of assuming that we've already established our 6-month goals now and asking us if we want to do our next 6 months. But that being said, you can change this to any date range you want to. So I'm just going to bring this back to April so that I am establishing goals from this point forward. And you'll see in a second, it'll give me a 6-month calendar to fill out. Now, the second thing on here, and the long-term vision and mission statement, by the way, are things that we only have to establish once. We established that for the chapter. No matter how many times we work on the goals or work on the which 6-month period, those long-term vision and mission statement will stay static through that time unless we decide we want to update it or change it. So here in Antarctica, in the Shiver region, my Burr chapter, we have a long-term vision. And the long-term vision is kind of where do you want to get to as a chapter? What is the end result that you're looking for? And in words, because we're going to do the statistics afterwards, but in words, we want to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So that's kind of our BHAG as a chapter. If anybody knows what a BHAG is big, hairy, audacious goal. So that's what we're shooting for, to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. Now, the mission statement, the second part of this, the mission statement is what are your guiding principles on how to get where you're going? So if the long-term vision is where you're going to get to, the mission statement's kind of like your flashlight. It's going to show you the way and how you're going to get there. So our mission statement for the Burr chapter is to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals. So now that we've established our long-term vision and mission statement, and we're going to choose which 6-month period we're going to work with, starting with April of 2016 or this month, the next step is just to hit the go button. And this will give us our spreadsheet. And what the goals are largely is filling out this spreadsheet. And what we'll see here is we have our date range along the top, so we're setting a goal per month. We have April, May, June, July, August, and September, which will take us through this 6-month period. Then, as we scroll down, what we will see is our chapter success drivers, such as attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, visitors, new memberships, number of members, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. Now keep in mind, almost everything on this form is measurable through the PALMS report, and it's all based on chapter statistics and things that we're doing on a weekly basis. So everything here is definitely measurable. Now, before we get started looking at each of these individual goals, there is one setting that I want to call your attention to. And up here, right at the top, there's a thing that says Enter Goals. And are you going to be calculating your goals for the whole chapter or per member? And what this comes down to is really it's defining whether or not it's going to do the calculation when we get to the View Goals program, and whether or not you like to enter big numbers or small numbers. So when we enter things for the whole chapter, we need to keep in mind that when we're doing, let's say, number of referrals for the chapter, it's going to be however many referrals per week multiplied by the number of members that we expect to have in the chapter at that point in time, and that will give us our goal number of, let's say, referrals. Or if you prefer to do per member, then what it will do is when it gets to the view screen, it will just take, let's say that we want 4 referrals per member per month. It will take that and multiply it by your goal number of members in order to compare it against what's in the PALMS report. I can tell you that most people, when they're entering this, they end up using for the whole chapter. It seems to be more natural for most people to work on that basis. So the total number that you would see in the PALMS report. All right, so let's start taking a look at a couple of these goals. And for each individual chapter success driver, for example, attendance percentage, you'll see three distinct lines. The goal, that's the obvious one. We're going to put in our measurable statistic for that particular goal. So what is our percentage of attendance in this case? The next two things that you see are called mechanisms, mechanism 1 and mechanism 2. And what the mechanisms are things to remind you or things that you're planning to support that particular goal. Why don't we just go through this first one, and maybe that will become a little clearer. So, for example, attendance percentage. Keep in mind, I'm working with my Burr chapter up in Antarctica. We've always had a problem with attendance. Right now, I find that it's always easier to start with the end in mind. There's two things that you always know coming into this particular report, and that is I know where we are now, so I kind of know where we need to be in the next couple of weeks by the end of the month. And right now, we're hovering at about 85% attendance in our chapter. So, by the end of the month, it's my first month being a president. We're probably not going to eke up too much, but let's say we're going to try to get to 86% by the end of the month. So the next easiest thing to do is to decide where you want to get to. So I know where I am now, and I know where I want to get to, and I want to get to about 96% attendance. So no more than like one person absent without a sub on a weekly basis in this particular chapter. So that's where I'd like to get to, 96% attendance. And now it's just a matter of simple math. Once we've done that part of it, we can just basically just see how much difference it is. It's a 10-point difference. So we know that we pretty much have to go up by 2% each month, 88, 90, 92, 94, 96. So that makes it pretty straightforward and easy. One note of warning, don't overcomplicate things at this point. A lot of people, you can make this as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. But a lot of people say, well, you know what, it's going to be December, and we know that in December we have all these holidays, so we're probably going to take a little bit hit of attendance, so they lower their goal for that particular month and make it even higher the next month to account for it. And you do all these calculations based on, it's summertime and we're in a beach community. My idea of this, my suggestion to you is it's better to have something in there and then go back and adjust it later than to make it so overcomplicated that you end up with nothing. So I'd rather see you put some numbers in there and then go back and adjust them later than to just try to sit there and calculate for every single variable. All right. So that being said, we have our numbers in for the percentage. Now let's look at the mechanisms. And again, the mechanisms are going to be things that you're going to do as a leadership team to help to support those particular goals. One of the things that happens in BNI, and I'm a BNI member, by the way. I've been a BNI member since 2002. I've been just about every position on the leadership team multiple times, as well as a director consultant. So I'm very familiar with, both being in BNI, the successes of BNI, but also the time investment in especially being on the leadership team in BNI. And the fact of the matter is that we have our BNI responsibilities and we also have our own businesses. So we come up with these great ideas for the chapter, and then all of a sudden a whole week goes by and we're up to our next meeting and, oh no, I forgot to do this, or I forgot to announce the visitors day that we wanted to have, or I forgot to tell the educational coordinator to do this particular education moment this week, or I forgot to get the announcements out, or whatever it is. What the mechanisms are ways to remind yourself of what your initiatives are throughout the year so that you pretty much don't forget to do them. It's kind of a little reminder. So what you want to do is to use mechanisms that are going to support those goals. So if we're looking to increase our percentage of attendance, what are some things that we can do in order to help with that? Well, one thing that we might want to do right in the beginning is, now we have a brand new leadership team in place. We want to make sure that the vice president is following the structure of BNI and sending out the control letters when people are absent. So I want to make sure that we are VP is sending control letters. Right, so this right there is my reminder that this month this is going to be our focus. And because my entire leadership team has access to this and my director consultant, this now becomes a collaboration. They can view this report. My director consultant, even though he's not here while I'm entering this data, they can go in and view this report and say, hey, he's looking to make sure the VP is sending control letters. Maybe I can have a one-to-one with the president or the vice president and help them to support those goals as well. And you have the opportunity to put a second mechanism. So maybe the second thing that you're going to do is you want to support that initiative with doing an educational moment about why the VP will be sending letters. Right? And you can do that all across the board. So next month you can come up with a mechanism for supporting that, and maybe it's going to be recognition for perfect attendance, right? Now, if you're looking for ideas for different types of mechanisms, now the mechanisms are completely free-form, so you can come up with any mechanism you'd like to that supports that goal, but if you're looking for ideas, click this chapter goal guide in the top right-hand corner. And what this will show you is different ideas or mechanisms for each of those chapter success drivers. So for example, with attendance, making sure that we're doing accurate tracking of lates and absence. You could do something, bring your sub day, play the BNI game, follow up phone calls from the membership committee. So all of these different ideas, and if you like one, why don't we just do this? We can copy it and we can paste it right into the mechanism. All right, now at the bottom of the page, you're going to see a couple of buttons as well. Save and discard changes. Just as if you were working on a spreadsheet or a Word document or anything else, you do want to make sure you save this every once in a while. It will allow you to stay on this page. It's not going to kick you out or anything like that, but it is important to know that this can be a lengthy process, filling out these goals, and especially if you're doing this live as, let's say, a leadership team meeting with your other leadership team members. It could take a while to get through this. There is a 30-minute timeout in BNI Connect where if I don't click on anything or do any data entry for 30 minutes, it will log me out of BNI Connect and I will lose any unsaved information. So it's very important to know. Make sure that you hit that save button every once in a while. Now, before we move on to some of these other ones, you don't have to do this particular exercise in the order in which it's listed. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you don't. What I recommend that you do next is to actually go to your, really the most important one and scroll down to number of members in chapter. This is probably the most important one, and it's going to help you to actually determine most of the rest of the numbers on here as well. So once again, I can begin with the end in mind. And I know right now that our chapter, we have 30 members in our chapter. And I know that I want to grow to 40 members. So that's a pretty aggressive goal. We want to have a net 10 plus members by the end of this 6-month period. So once again, now that I know the beginning number and the end number, I can just split the difference across here, 32, 34, 36, 38, and 40. So we want to grow by 2 members a month. Now, once again, you can make this more or less complicated. For example, if you know you're going to be doing a Visitors Day in June, then maybe you're going to have a big influx of a bunch of people that month, but you may have a drop off the next month. So you can, again, go very detailed with this. I'm choosing to keep it fairly straightforward so that we have some good information in there to get us started with. By the way, you can go back and edit your goals anytime if I haven't mentioned that, so even after submitting them. All right, so mechanisms you can use for this. maybe we know that in June we are going to have a visitor day. So I want to put in that we're having a visitor day, and maybe in the month before that we need to make sure that we are planning the visitor day. And maybe the month before that we want to make sure that we're giving the growth coordinator time to speak at the meeting. All right, so there's different mechanisms we can do to build up to where we want to get to. Once we know the number of members that we want in the chapter, the next easiest thing to do is to figure out how many new memberships we need, because if we're growing by 2 new members a month, then we're going to need 2 new memberships a month, right? Well, sort of. We actually are going to need more than 2. And the reason for that is that every chapter does have at least some attrition. Every chapter loses, on average, somewhere around 12 members per year. And a lot of times that's unavoidable. People, they change jobs. People move to different cities and may not be able to make that meeting at that location anymore. Some people may just get too busy and they can't make the commitment anymore. Maybe they just the opposite. They lose a couple of key employees and they have to go back out on the road selling and they can't make the meeting. There's a lot of kind of good reasons that people leave, meaning they're not a bad member, they're not a bad person, it's just not right for them anymore, and we hope that they'll come back someday. But that being said, we do have to account for that when we're talking about bringing on new members. So if we're looking to grow our chapter by a net of 2 people per month, then we really need to be bringing in approximately 3 applications per month. So we know that we need 3 new memberships per month in order to obtain our goal of a net 1. A net 2. All right, and once again, we have our mechanisms, and again, we can even copy and paste. There's going to be times when the mechanism supports multiple goals. So you can copy and paste those across. Another one, new memberships might be making sure that we're doing the visitor orientation process, where we take the visitor out of the room at the end of the meeting to make sure that we hand them an application and answer any questions that they have about BNI. And again, you can put in all of your own mechanisms there as well. So moving up the list here, if we know how many new memberships, they have to come from someplace, right? They come from visitors. So if we know how many new members we need, we know how many visitors we need. Now, if you have a 100% closing ratio, then all you need is 3 visitors per month. Now, I don't know about your chapter, but my chapter does not have a 100% closing ratio. We probably have about, I'd say about 1 in 4 conversion ratio. So about one in every 4 or so visitors that come to our chapter end up putting in an application. Which means that if I want to have 3 new memberships every month, and it's only 1 in every 4 people that join, I really need 4 times 3, or about 12 visitors every month. So I need to make sure I put these in 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. And I know I have our goal of 12 visitors per month. And once again, I can still put in some mechanisms for these to remind myself of what I'm going to be doing at those various time periods. How do we increase visitors with a visitors day? Maybe we need to do some education on inviting. Maybe some education on contact spheres. Maybe we want to teach people how to use the BNI Connect invitation. All sorts of great things that you can do to support that particular goal. All right, so the next couple of goals, so after that we have one-to-ones, CEUs, and referrals. And all of those pretty much are the same thing, at least if you prescribe to the philosophy that our chapter has. And what we're looking for is, well, we subscribe to a thing called the power of one. And the power of one is you really want to strive for one of everything. And that means one referral per week. So every time I come to the meeting, I want to make sure I have one referral. I want to make sure I've done one-to-one that week. And I want to make sure I have at least one CEU. I also want to make sure I have no more than one absence in every 6-month period, and I want to make sure I bring one visitor a month. So if I can hit all of those things, that will be my power of one. So that just means that I should be able to take, if I'm saying every member has one referral per week, that's 4 referrals per month on average. So I want to make sure that I just take our goal number of members and multiply that by 4. So that would be 120, 128, 136, 144, 152, and 160, right? And there's plenty of things that you can do to support those. And again, that's going to be the same for these other goals here as well. So we have our CEUs, 120, 128, 136, 144, 152, and 160. And the same thing for one-to-ones. Lots of different ways that you can support those goals through mechanisms. There's always the BNI game. If you've never played the BNI game before, that's a really fun thing to do. Most chapters out there, most entrepreneurs tend to have a couple of very competitive members in the chapter, and this is a great way to really bring out that competitive spirit in a friendly way. So I'm going to put in that we're going to play the BNI game in June and July. So John asks, what is the BNI game? So to play the BNI game, what you do, this should be in your president's packet if you happen to be a president. But the BNI game, you split your chapter into multiple groups. So depending on the size of your chapter, but usually 3 or 4 groups of 5 or 6 people in each group. And what you do is you assign points to each of the positive things that you do in the chapter. So for example, if you show up on time, every member of your team gets, let's say, 3 points. Or if you if you had a one-to-one that week, maybe you get 2 points. Or if you brought a referral that week, maybe that's 5 points. If you had a CEU, maybe that's a point per CEU. Or if you bring a visitor, and maybe let's say you're trying to really encourage growth, so you want to encourage visitors, make sure that visitors are worth like 10 points. And maybe if they get and they become a new member, maybe they get to be a part of your team, and it's like 50 points. So you can really work this in your favor in order to help grow the chapter and build some excitement about it. So that really would apply towards really all of those different things is playing the BNI game. By the way, we usually try not to have that go on for any more than 6 to 8 weeks, otherwise it starts to get stale. And usually it's a non-monetary prize. It's more for bragging rights, and a lot of times we'll do something like we'll have a business after hours or something like that, or we'll have a barbecue or a picnic or something like that. And let's say the winning team, everybody buys them a first round of drinks, or they don't have to clean up after the barbecue or something along those lines. So just an idea for you. So after you're done entering all your goals, do make sure to save them. And the beauty of this is that once we've saved our goals, we can go back to Operations chapter. We can go to Manage Goals, and then we can go to View Chapter Goals. By default, it's going to show you the current 6-month period, but once again, you can change that to anything you'd like. And you'll start to see the actuals put in with the goal numbers. Now, it doesn't make much sense because this is Antarctica and we just don't have a lot of statistics up there. So let me just show you what a real live region looks like. I'm going to go to one of my favorite places, and this is the Florida region. And in the Central West region of Florida and the Tampa Bay area, this is a region that's run by a man named Tom Fleming. He's actually one of the people that helped to create the goals program in BNI, and he uses this extensively. And if I just randomly choose any chapter in his region, they always put in their goals. I've yet to come across one of these on a webinar where they did not have their goals filled out. So let me look at, I'm going to look at from November forward. And once again, he proves correct that he did have the goals established. So here we have the BNI Eagles chapter, and we can see that their long-term vision is the BNI Eagles will have the majority of its members E-squared, which is an education initiative they have down there. An educated team, all rowing in the same direction, will ensure more quality referrals and profitability for all members. They want to become a powerful team that serves each other with pride, honesty, and integrity. They're going to promote unity among chapter members and educate current members, thereby securing their future and active participation in the chapter. Their mission statement is they want to be 55 members by May 5th. They'll continue to grow the library, thereby educating members and securing their success. So let's see how they're doing. So their goal so far for attendance is 100%. Why not shoot for 100% attendance? They have pretty much come close to hitting that, 96, 94, in the high 90s all the way through. And you can see the things that they did to support the attendance, educational moments on the power of attendance, playing the Jeopardy game, why I love the BNI promo video. So all different things that they've done. We can see what their goal and actual number of one-to-ones have been, their CEUs, their visitors, new memberships, total number of members, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. So that, my friends, we are at the bottom of the hour, and that is the goals program in BNI Connect. What I'd like to do now is to open this up for any questions that anybody has at all about BNI Connect or the goals program in BNI Connect. While you're thinking of any last-minute questions, just a couple of reminders. This is being recorded. You'll be able to find the recording by going to the support site, which you can get to by clicking on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner. That will take you over to support.bniconnect.com. First thing you'll see on this page is all of our upcoming webinars. And a good referral for me is to please recommend these webinars to people in your region, especially to new members. We have just tomorrow for all new members, how to complete your profile. That's going to be tomorrow at this same time, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to follow that up with giving and tracking referrals and through the rest of the series for the rest of the month. You can also find the recordings by clicking on, for example, recorded webinars for March of 2016. This will have the series of recorded webinars, and you'll see an April one up there very soon as I get these first couple of webinars for the month converted. All right, so let's see. We have a question from Jeff. Jeff says, who is responsible to fill out the goals, the president, VP, or treasurer, or is it a team responsibility? I would say it is a team responsibility. I don't think there's anything in any documentation anywhere that says, the president should do this or the vice president should do this. It's a team initiative, and you should also work with your director consultant. I'm sure they had some great ideas for you and some great input into establishing your goals as well. But good question. Thank you, Jeff. All right. Do we have any other questions? Jerry asks, how often are the goals updated? So, Jerry, I'm assuming you mean the actuals. So when you go into view chapter goals, the actuals. Okay, so those are going to be updated every time the POMs are submitted. So if they seem to be out of date or they seem to have not moved in a couple of weeks or anything like that, then my suggestion to you is to please go and check with your vice president. If you're not the vice president, then please check with your vice president and ask them to catch up on submitting the goals. That's usually what the issue is. But good question. Thank you. All right. I think that was the last question. Going once, going twice. All right. If we don't have any additional questions, I'm going to let you guys get back to your busy day. If you have anything that pops into your head after we've hung up, please make sure to email support@bniconnect.com and we'll be happy to help you out. On that note, I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar and happy connecting.